Do the current riots and looting and protests make a difference? Are they bringing us closer together, or are they driving a deeper wedge in between us? Let's talk about it. Hello, back again. I hope everybody's okay. I hope you've calmed down a little bit. I'm trying to. But you know me, it's difficult for me to calm down too far. I've got so much on my mind and so many things happening. Right now, the big issue seems to have changed, excuse me, from the death of George Floyd and police brutality to everything's about race now. Now, not just the police. The police aren't the only racist now. If you're white and you're not a liberal and you're not willing to bow your down in front of a black man and kiss his boots, then you're a racist too. Now, I guess that depends on who you're talking to and how they define racism. It's not how I define it. So let me make a few things clear. Number one, I don't hate anybody because of the color of their skin. Okay? There may be people out there who do. I'm sure there are. There are always going to be people like that among us. If I hate somebody, it's because of something they've done to me or something they said to me or someone I care about. So I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke at you and tell you, oh, I don't hate people. I love everybody. No, I hate people. There are people out there who have my enmity. They get on my nerves really bad. And if they were in the same room with me, I'm not sure I wouldn't want to punch them in the head. So I'm not going to pretend I don't hate people. But again, if I hate you, it's because of something you've done. It's because of your actions, not because of what you look like. All right, you with me? I treat everybody the same way I want to be treated. I want to be treated politely and with respect. If it's the first time we're meeting, I'm going to assume you're a good person. I hope you'll assume the same about me. And until you prove otherwise, I'll treat you that way. Okay? Now, if you want to base your thoughts on who someone is or how they're likely to act just because of how they look, that's on you. Yeah, you look at me, you see this old white guy, long beard. You probably think, Virginia flag flying behind me. I did Civil War reenacting for years. Oh, he's got to be a racist. Yeah, he's a racist. I'm going to treat him like one. He's not a Democrat either. Of course, he's not a Republican either, but, that gets thrown out the window. As soon as somebody learns you're not a Democrat or a liberal, oh, he must be a racist. Okay, well, if you're that damn stupid, I can't help you. All right? That's just something you're going to have to get over on your own. This groupthink, this identity politics that we're dealing with now, where everybody's got to be pigeonholed. If you're within a certain age group, you must think this way. If your skin color is a certain color, you have to think that way. Or you're in this group or this political party. And by pigeonholing them, you already know what they think. You haven't even talked to them. You haven't asked them any questions. You don't know anything about them. But just by looking at them, you got them figured out. You know that they're a racist or not. Well, that's stupid. You're stupid if you think that way. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If that's how your brain works, you need help. Okay? I'm not going to get sucked into this game. I'm not going to play this Black Lives Matter game. Well, if you don't agree with Black Lives Matter, you must be a racist. Nah, screw you. All right? All lives matter. My life matters. The red guy down the street, the yellow guy that way, the brown guy over here, his life matters too. And yes, Black lives matter. But let's not pretend that they're the only ones. And having said that, let's stop pretending that the biggest problem that a black man in this country has is a white man. Guys, I know you don't want to hear it. I know it's going to make you mad. I can just see those knees jerking now. But it ain't white guys from out in the surrounding counties and out in the country driving into the cities and shooting black men in record numbers every year. So you need to get over that. You need to change your narrative. Now, I know why you're saying what you are. This has become a political movement. It's not about black lives. That's the cover you're using. I get it. I understand why you're doing it. It's marketing. If you just came right out and said, we want communism in this country, we want to take over, we want our political system in place and not the current constitutional political system, well, people are going to dismiss you right out of hand. On the other hand, if you come out and you start playing the race baiting game and you try to make people feel guilty, then people are going to, oh, I'm not a racist. No, I'll be quiet. I'm sorry. I don't want you to think I'm a racist. Well, screw that too. I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to challenge assertions that you make. And if that makes me a racist in your book, okay, call me a racist. But at some point, you're going to have to stop and think about the things that you say and the things that you advocate for. And I know what it's all about. I've been around long enough to see how this game is played. And I'm not going to play it. I don't feel guilt. I don't know why many of you white people out there seem to. If there are any white people out there over 150 years old and you owned slaves at one time, man, I don't know what kind of diet you're on or what supplements you take, but I'd like to find out. So just shut up. None of you have ever owned a slave. None of you blacks out there have ever been a slave, any more than we've all been slaves to the state. But let's stop playing this game. One of the things that's come up now with this conversation is reparations. Once again, that's popped up out of nowhere. And in fact, in California, they've recently passed a bill moving closer towards reparations. Well, I'm going to show you the article in a second here, but just let me say this. If your intention is to bring us closer together, to bridge that divide and create unity in this country, you're going about it all wrong. Because the things you're doing and the things you're saying right now are not bringing people together. Oh, you may get some support from the guilty white liberals or guilty white people in general who seem to think they owe you an apology. I owe you nothing. I don't owe you shit. Are you hearing me? If that makes me a racist in your book, fine. I'll live with it. But I've never owned a slave. I've never beaten a black man just because he's black. Oh, I've beaten a couple of them because they took a swing at me. That's a whole nother story. But again, if you're black and you treat me like a decent human being, I will treat you like one. If you're an asshole, I'm going to treat you like an asshole. Is that simple enough for you to understand? Now, let me show you this. All right, so here's an article. This is from CBS 13 in Sacramento, California. June 11th, 2020. All right, African American Reparation Bill passes California Assembly. Why? Seriously, why? Now, my ancestry is Scottish. All right, Bayne, short for McBean. Okay, have you read the history of how the British treated the Scottish in the past? Maybe you should. Because if people are going to demand reparations for the way their ancestors were treated, then maybe I should get together with a bunch of my Scottish friends and we should demand reparations from Great Britain. Or we could just do like grown-ups do and move on and understand that that was in the past. You got it? Slavery ended over 150 years ago. You weren't a slave. You're not owed anything. Get over yourself. Okay, so reparations. That's back on the scene again. And when is that going to, how is that bringing us together? How is that making us want to come together and unify? It's not. It's simply driving the wedge in deeper. No white person today owes any black person anything because of slavery. None of us were slave owners. None of you were slaves. Even now, I've done my ancestry, I've done my genealogy, and I haven't been able to find anybody in my family who was a slave owner. But let's say I did, just for the sake of this discussion. Let's say that my great-great-grandfather owned 30 slaves and had a farm in Virginia. How the hell am I responsible for that? Didn't even know my great-great-grandfather. He was dead long before I was born. I never owned any slaves. If I had been alive then, as a child, I don't know what I would have done or said about it. Being born into a culture, that's all you know. But again, to think that people today owe you for something that happened 150 years ago or more, I don't know what else to call that but just stupid. Now let's talk about real racism. Let's talk about people who really want to do harm to the black community. One of the biggest causes of death for the black community is abortion. Now, we can talk in another video about whether you agree with or disagree with abortion, pro-life, pro-abortion, whatever that may be. I'm just talking about facts right now. I'm talking about numbers, real empirical statistics. You can't argue with them. I mean, you can try if you want to, but the numbers are what they are. So let's look at some of that. All right, so racist, people who hate black people. Let's talk about Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger is the lady who founded Planned Parenthood. Do you know that she was a eugenicist as well as a racist? Do you know what a eugenicist is? Adolf Hitler was a eugenicist. Adolf Hitler believed in a master race, a superior race. Well, so did Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger wanted to get rid of Negroes because they were inferior. So let's look at her words. Let's look at some of the things that were said about her. Because abortion was meant for African Americans to begin with, so it's natural that they would not care about the people they are trying to exterminate. Margaret Sanger, the founder of the nation's leading abortion supplier, Planned Parenthood, once said, now this is Margaret Sanger speaking, your white liberal Democrat hero that everybody sings the praises of. Quote, we don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, unquote. Perhaps not coincidentally, nearly 80% of Planned Parenthoods are located in black and Hispanic communities today. Coincidence? You tell me. But let's look at that sentence again. Quote, this is Margaret Sanger, this isn't Floyd Bayne talking. Quote, we don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, unquote. What does that mean to you? Does that sound racist to you, Mr. and Mrs. Democrat / liberal? You support Planned Parenthood. You sing the praises of Margaret Sanger as a heroic woman. Well, what's heroic about wanting to exterminate the Negro race? Have you thought about that at all? Let's look at this. Okay. Now this is Margaret Sanger in her autobiography, which was published in 1938. This is on page 366. So if you don't believe me, if you think I'm just making all this stuff up, you can look it up if you dare to. But you probably won't, because you don't want to believe it anyway. Margaret Sanger, from her book, I accepted an invitation to talk to the women's branch of the Ku Klux Klan. I was escorted to the platform, was introduced, and began to speak. In the end, through simple illustrations, I believed I had accomplished my purpose. A dozen invitations to speak to similar groups were proffered. Similar groups. Well, now the KKK is, what kind of group is that? Is that a racist terrorist group created by the Democrat Party? Well, if they're a racist group, then who are these similar groups that were asking her to come speak to them? And what is it that she was saying that they wanted to hear? I'll give you a second to think about that. Do you ever think about these things? Or do you just listen to your TV and do what it tells you to do? Or do you just listen to your celebrity liberal friends or your celebrity political heroes like Hillary Clinton? Hillary Clinton thought Margaret Sanger was great. She talked about how she thought Margaret Sanger was a great woman leader, that she admired Margaret Sanger greatly. But Margaret Sanger wanted to exterminate the Negro population in this country. How the hell, in your eyes, is that not racist? You need to explain that to me. If you can, look in the comments section. You know where to go. And explain to me how Margaret Sanger was not racist. Explain to me how Planned Parenthood was not planned and created to be racist. I'd love to hear your explanation. Okay, so the next problem. We're told that, the problem of being black in America is that there's all this racism. They have to worry about white people. They're always getting killed by white people, especially racist white cops, overlooking the number of black cops that kill black people. But the media and the politicians want you to hate each other. They want us at each other's throats because it benefits them. Don't you get it? It benefits the media. They push the racism narrative. They push the white versus black narrative because they want you to hate each other. The politicians do the same damn thing because it benefits them. If they can convince you, black people, liberals, if your politicians can convince you that the white man hates you, and the reason you have problems, the reason you're being kept down is because of the white man, then they can also come in and say, but if you vote for me, I'll fix it for you. See how it works? They don't give a damn about you. You've got to understand this. You've got to come to grips with it. I know you don't want to. I know it's not a popular thought. I know it makes you mad to hear it. But the Democrats, black and white, do not give a shit about you. 8 years of Obama. What did he do to help the black community? Oh, he made good speeches. Very articulate when he was reading off the prompter. But what did he do? Not just words. What were his actions? How were things better for you? Pelosi, Biden, Schumer, Waters, pick one. Been in D.C. 30, 40, some of them, one or two of them, 50 years. What have they done to make things better for you? Joe Biden. Do you know Joe Biden helped write the 3 Strikes and You're Outlaw, which put so many black men in jail for non-violent offenses, for victimless crimes? Joe Biden, liberal Democrat, the guy you want for president. But of course, you don't want to believe that, do you? Because your TV news talking head didn't tell you that. I told you. And you're not going to look it up because that would take time. And it conflicts with your worldview. And you don't want that to happen. But let's look at the real enemies, the real problem of the black man in America. And let's just right now, for this discussion, we'll pick one city in the entire country. We'll pick Chicago. Chicago, Illinois, because if you watch the news at all, whether it's the mainstream media on TV, newspaper, magazine, whatever it is, you've got to know by now that more black men are killed in Chicago every year by other black men than anywhere else in the country. And that's true of most large Democrat-run cities. We'll get to that in a minute. But look at this right here. Homicides in Chicago. This is just, there had been 255 homicides in Chicago in 2020. What are we in June now? 6 months into the year. We're halfway through the year. They've already had 255 homicides. And I hate to be the one to break it to you, but it ain't the cops killing them all. And it ain't good old boys from out in the country driving into the city in their pickup trucks with their Confederate flags waving in the back, shooting up the black man on the street. All these deaths, you see it, the name, well, this one's unknown. All right, Kevin Applewhite, Denzel Gresham, Courtney Horton, black, unknown, black. And, I could keep going on. There's 255 of them here. Oh, here's a white victim. Gosh, so some white people do get killed in Chicago. But again, I'm going to ask you for just a brief moment, if you're capable to put your emotions aside and to think, to use your brain, to think rationally and logically, who's killing all these black people? And this isn't the first time this has happened. Chicago's notorious for it. It's been going on for years. Baltimore, New York, St. Louis, Los Angeles, Oakland, pick a major U.S. city with Democrat mayors, Democrat governors, Democrat police chiefs, black police chiefs, large numbers of black men on the police force. Well, if racism is a white thing, if racism is a Republican thing or a conservative thing, then how is this happening in all of these liberal cities? Have you even for a moment stopped to think about that? And if you haven't, why? If black lives are really that important to you, see, I want to tell you something right now, and I know this is going to piss you off. I'll believe that BLM, Black Lives Matters, really cares about black lives, and it's not just a political agenda, when they start going and marching in Chicago and demanding that their fellow black men and women stop killing each other. Okay? When you do that, I'll give you some respect. I'll believe that you really do care about black lives. Until then, nah. It's just a political movement. When I hear you talking about hundreds of thousands of black babies that are killed every year at Planned Parenthood, started by Margaret Sanger, the white racist eugenicist. When I see those protests, I'll believe that you really care about black lives. Until then, you're just another racist organization with a political agenda. You're just like the KKK in my book. I don't believe you give a damn about black lives. You have a political agenda, and that's what you're trying to push. Okay, you like numbers, you like statistics. Let's look at some. This is from Statista. It's a website. You can probably Google it, find it just as easily as I did. Number of people shot to death by police in the United States from 2017 to 2020 by race. That's a 3-year period by race. Let's look. The blue color here. This is 2017. All right, so 2017, number of white people killed by police, 457. Number of black people killed, 223. 457, 223. Okay. Now, I'm no math whiz, but it looks to me like more white people were killed than black people by police. But we can't blame that on racism, can we? We could blame it on being overzealous, being trigger happy, police brutality, any number of things, poor training. But I don't know if you could blame cops killing white people on racism. Unless it was a black cop. Maybe it was black cops that killed them. And they did it because they don't like white people. I mean, that can happen, right? All right, let's look at 2018, 2019, 2020. So in the red, 2020. So far this year, 172 white people have been killed by police. 88 black people have been killed by police. I don't know, I'm seeing a pattern here. If you look at the red column for white, black, Hispanic, I mean, it looks like in every year, it looks like, well, let me see. No. The gray one, 2019. 235 killed. All right, so I think they won that year. Yeah, anyway, look at the numbers. Now, you're going to look at that and say, yeah, but per capita. I'm looking at it and going strictly by the numbers. Nationwide. That's how many people were killed. How many white people versus how many black people. Now, again, I'm sure there are racist cops. And I know, there's no question, that there are brutal cops. There are cops who abuse their authority. I know there are cops out there with attitudes. Look, I've seen them. I've dealt with them. I'm happy to say I've never been beaten or shot by one. But we know they're out there. And here's the sad part about this whole thing that's going on right now. I agreed with the call for police reform. I didn't know anyone who didn't agree with it. Even white conservative Republican Christians who for years wanted to deny that there was any kind of problem with the police were looking at that video and going, man, they shouldn't have done that. That's wrong. But that's all lost now. And you got no one to blame for it but yourself. Because you let, and don't tell me you didn't, you allowed other people to co-opt your message. There are people out there, people like me, who believe we need police reform. Been saying it for years. Been calling for it for years. But that's all lost now. Now it's us versus them. You're burning businesses, breaking in, looting. You're destroying monuments and statues. And at the same time you're doing that, you're telling us love will win. Love will conquer all. We should all come together. Well, screw you. You don't want us to come together. If you did, you wouldn't be doing the stupid shit you're doing. I mean, folks, you got to stop and think about what you're saying and what you're doing, because they don't always mesh. It doesn't make sense. One last article. Read this. This is from 2014. So this goes back 6 years. This is from American Free Press. 324,000 U.S. blacks killed by blacks in only 35 years. 35 years, 324 black men and women were killed by other black men and women. Now, are we going to blame racism for that? What are you going to blame for it? Who are you going to hold accountable? When are you going to have a protest about this? Whose buildings and businesses are you going to burn and loot because of this? Don't you see how you're being played? Don't you understand what's going on? Look, the bottom line to all this is, I know there are some of you out there who want this racism thing to be so true. It benefits you. It buttresses your emotions. It allows you to feel like you can justifiably hate somebody. And you want to hate somebody. You want to point the finger and say, they're responsible. Okay, I get it. Human nature. I understand that. But if you're really concerned about black people being killed every day, why aren't you looking at yourselves? Why are there no protests about the murders, black on black crime in Baltimore, New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Los Angeles? Nothing. And for my friends out there on the right, I'm going to remind you of something when it comes to police reform, and I'll end with this. Right now, because of what's going on, we see once again that wedge being driven between groups, and people on both sides are buying into it. You know, you see what's on the news. The news is pushing the race narrative. They want you to hate each other. And now you're behind the police while the other side is against the police. I want to remind you, let's go back to January here in Richmond. Pro-Second Amendment rally, 50,000 people at the state capitol protesting for gun rights because Northam, blackface Northam, wants to take away our guns. And you were angry at that time because you were worried about the police, among other things, following orders and just doing what the government tells them to do and coming to take your guns. Red flag laws. Remember? Remember how you were standing up and saying, hey, you know, Moline Loeb, come take it. I dare you. Well, who were you talking to when you said that? Did you think blackface was coming for your guns? Because he ain't going to be the one kicking your door in. Now, after that, we get the COVID crap. And yeah, I say crap because I haven't believed any of that garbage from day one. But now everybody's told to stay inside. You can't go to work. You can't go to church. You can't do this. You can't do that. You're mad. I saw you posting the videos. I heard your comments. Cops arresting people for going to church. Cops arresting some guy because he wants to open his business. Arresting a dad for taking his kids to the park to play ball. How dare they? Who the hell do they think they are? Just a bunch of Nazis? See, I heard you. And when this whole thing started with the George Floyd incident, you were there with the other side. Everybody was together. It's the first time I can remember where we all came together and said, you know, the police messed up. Those guys need to be arrested. But then the protest started. Then Antifa comes in. Then BLM comes in. And pretty soon it's not about George Floyd anymore. It's about a political agenda. You got hijacked. And in many cases, I believe you allowed yourself to be hijacked. I've seen the videos. I've seen the white kids smashing the windows and the black kids smashing the windows. I've seen both sides, white and black kids, kicking the snot out of people in the street. I've seen them. I know what happened. But the message is lost. Now we've taken sides again. Some of us, like me, haven't forgotten that there's an issue that needs to be fixed. And I'm not going to allow myself to get caught up in black versus white and all this racist crap that the media and the politicians are pushing. And if you do, then shame on you. Because that shouldn't be what it's about. It should be about all of us recognizing that there is a problem and we need to fix that problem. And there are ways to fix it without defunding or getting rid of the police. You can still have police reform. I've even advocated for privatizing police. I've seen that happen in some communities across America. Now, whether you can do that in really large cities or not, that's something we can discuss. But it's a discussion worth having. But calm down. Cool your jets. I need to calm down too. I admit it. I'm pretty wound up right now. But don't let these people use you. You have a legitimate gripe. Stick with that. Focus on that. Stop letting yourself get sucked into this race thing where it's white versus black. You know, Republican versus Democrat. Everything's about the skin color. Because that's not what it should be about. I hope at some point you'll slow down and think about the things you've been doing and the things you've been saying and understand that right now you're not bringing people together. You're driving them further apart. And that's not going to help.